So that was my weekend, everyone. I hope you're doing well. This is Andy Hall. This is the Disappointed Cat Morning Show. It's Monday, May 3rd. I hope everyone's doing well. That was my weekend, eating cheese sticks and cheese sauce at a drive-in. Let's see who's in the chat this morning. Phil Lister, boating around the Baltic. Jesse Beer, hello, hello. Brain buzz. See, my brain's not working right. I said brain buzz, but it's brain bug with the buzzing. John Hudson, Dr. Mordecai. I offend many people, Dr. Mordecai. I offend morning people. And Tobin Templeman. And hey, Sammy Jenkins, how you doing? And Glenn Jesterson's here. Hello, Glenn. Yeah, I had a good weekend. I hope everyone had a good weekend, right? What did I do? Went to a drive-in. Saw some Japanese anime movie that I had no real desire to see. But, you do things for your kids. You drive an hour's distance so you can eat cheese sticks and drink beer and then see a movie that you have really no interest on seeing. So that was part of my weekend. It seems to be a beer-heavy weekend, to tell you the truth, because we stopped off at a beer garden outside, beer garden, of course, at a microbrewery, and had a few pints there too. So it turns out, upon reflection, I drank this weekend. Not a lot, but some. And speaking of drinking, we're doing Atheist Drinking Out Loud this Saturday. Seamus from Free Thought Profit, Neil the 604 Atheist. Neil's bringing in a guest too. I'm not really sure who it is, but I believe Neil's bringing in a guest for this Saturday at 5 p.m. So if you want to do some day drinking with us from 5 to 7 on Saturday, that's what we're doing here on the channel. So I hope everyone had a good weekend. Are we cool cats since we are always here? I consider us cool cats. I consider you guys cool cats. Me, I'm a little bit too not cool for that, right? I don't consider myself a cool cat. I wish to be surrounded by cool cats, however. That's how I look at it. So what's today? Oh, hey, it's your birthday, Sammy Jenkins. Well, cheers. I'm gonna lift up my Hobbit cup. I gave this to my girlfriend for her birthday, part of her birthday. I'm a big fan of Second Breakfast, as many of you know. So cheers. Remember Sammy Jenkins for surviving another year. And surviving and thriving. I have to apologize right now. I have nothing but good news. I did have a good weekend, to tell you the truth. Scott Duke. I had a pretty good weekend. No complaints there. Derek Cruz, glad to see that you're here. So I'm sorry. Like I was saying, I have nothing but good news. Stories we're going to be covering today. Mitt Romney getting booed by Republicans. W. Bush telling Republicans they should be less Anglo-Saxon. And speaking from the Angles and the Saxons, my peeps, I would say that I agree with Mr. Bush the younger. Astronauts splashing down, and Proud Boys being disbanded. Well, disbanding themselves in Canada. We also have a little update on Rudy Giuliani, or at least some insight, an overview of Rudy Giuliani. So, like I said, it's going to be a lot of good news. I don't know how my heart's going to be able to deal with this amount of good news and Schadenfreude, but I'm going to try to make it through the hour. Of course, we're doing the after party after show, which is an open room for those of you who are new here. We do that from 10 to 11. If you want to pop in and talk about whatever you want to talk about, that'll be great. Link is in the description. So you want to do memes? Let's do memes. Phone booth. I actually took a selfie of a payphone on my journey down to North Carolina a week ago because I hadn't seen a functioning payphone for quite a while. But yeah, the classic phone booth versus the new phone booth, the phone booth of today. My therapist, you need to let people in. Me, it's not locked. I don't think my therapist actually ever told me that, but there's truth. There's some truth in that. My therapists in the past have told me to do lots of things, actually. Have I taken their advice? Probably not. Probably not. And this is a classic Simpsons episode, right? From early season when they were still being hand-drawn. Bart, would you like to say grace? Dear God, we pay for all this stuff ourselves. So thanks for nothing. Speaking of God and atheism, I don't know if you were here last night, everyone. At 10:30 p.m., I had Stax Rosh on. He's a longtime blogger, atheist activist. He just wrote a new book about disproving God. It's a short book, 57 pages. So he came on. We talked about atheism. We talked about how the community has changed. And, of course, we talked about his book. So if you haven't seen that video, that was from last night. It's about an hour long. I like to talk to authors about the books that they've written. I don't think I have another author in queue. Maybe, because I usually have one of my peoples who are authors writing something. So I think Jonathan M.S. Pierce has a new book out, fiction book out. All right, memes. That's right, Dr. Mordecai. Memes. Oh, yeah, that's right, Jesse Beer. My weekend was spent recovering from my first vaccine and getting a new sofa. Not exciting. Yeah, I have to tell you. I've never been too excited about buying sofas myself. The first shot wasn't bad for me. It was the second shot that hit me hard. All right, so you want to do a news story? What news story do we want to tell? You want to just want to bounce around? I have a bunch of news stories already set up. Well, let's do Mitt Romney because there's an audio-visual aspect to this also. Got a little film clip here, but let's go with this guy, Mitt Romney, one-time presidential nominee for the Republican Party. Whether he likes to admit it today or not, he is the father or maybe grandfather of Obamacare, because he started the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, here in Massachusetts under Romney Care. And now he gets no love. He gets no love from his fellow Republicans. Let's take a look at the headline of the story. Mitt Romney loudly booed at Utah Republican convention. Now, you're asking me, come on, Andy. Was it really loudly? Were they really loudly booing him? Well, let's look at the tape and see how loudly it was.
So what do you think about President Biden's first 100 days? Now, you know me as a person who says what he thinks, and I don't hide the fact that I wasn't a fan of our last president's character issues. And I'm also no fan... Aren't you embarrassed? And I'm also no fan of the president's...
Wow. Mitt Romney, no love by Republicans in Utah, no less, for Mitt Romney. Oh, I could feel the love, Phil Lister, right here, right in my heart. Mitt Romney, proof that Mormons eat their Republicans. I'd like to say Republicans, yeah. So let's get into the story itself. So that was the actual booing, which was quite loud, as you could hear. The Utah senator and former presidential candidate was the only Republican to vote twice to impeach ex-president President Trump. Yes, that's earned him much hate amongst the Trumpists. As Mr. Romney took stage at the state party convention in West Valley City, delegates shouted that he was a communist and a traitor. Amid the jeering, he asked the crowd, so what do you think of President Biden's first 100 days? Oh, Mitt, that was not going to be good enough to win the crowd over. Mitt Romney added that he was a person who says what he thinks, and I don't hide the fact I wasn't a fan of our last president's character issues. He also started to say, I'm also no fan of, but then he had to stop speaking again because the volume of the booing. See, he should have had a couple of jokes prepared, everyone. If he had a couple of jokes, maybe maybe he would have been able to navigate that a little bit better, possibly. After a pause, the senator asked the crowd of 2,100 delegates, "Aren't you embarrassed?" You know, if there's one thing that we've learned about Trump supporters, QAnon fascists, that they do not get embarrassed. They will take selfies of themselves in the Capitol building after mobbing it. They will burn masks. They are shameless. They are not embarrassed. State Party Chair Derek Brown then stepped in and pleaded with everyone to please show respect. Despite the show of disapproval, a motion to censure Mr. Romney for his votes to impeach Mr. Trump failed narrowly. Mr. Romney urged people to come together in strength and unity before leaving the stage. Moderate Republican Mr. Romney is not facing re-election in the Senate in 2022. The incident is seen as an example of how, despite his election loss last year, Mr. Trump continues to be popular within the party. A CNN poll. The CNN poll released this week suggested 70% of Republicans still believe Mr. Trump's allegation that President Joe Biden did not legitimately win the election, despite the claims being repeatedly proven to be false. Indeed. You know, in case you're just tuning in and you're asking yourself, how much did Mitt Romney get booed in Utah by Republicans?
So what do you think about President Biden's first 100 days? Now, you know me as a person who...
Yeah, he's not really good in the pocket in terms of, he's good when he's reading. He's good when he's reading, but in terms of being funny, Mitt Romney not being funny. And I have to tell you, humor has a way of diffusing many awkward situations. It creates awkward situations too, but I personally have used humor to diffuse many people who've been agitated with me. But Mitt Romney's not that guy. Mitt Romney's not that person. I'm going to check out the chat. Why do I let you torture me like this, Andy? I don't know, Doctor Osiris. I don't know. It should put a smile on your face. Mitt Romney getting booed by Republicans. I mean, there's a bit of schadenfreude there, right? Oh, you're right about that, Jesse Bear. The MAGA types have no shame and very limited critical thinking. KCA, Randy, glad to see you here. Mitt a communist? Nobody. Yeah, exactly. They don't use Google. Here we go. That was worth getting up early for on a Monday. Yeah, that's right. Seeing Mitt Romney booed and not being able to do crowd management, right? The man's been a politician for a long time. You would think he'd be able to navigate a crowd, an unfriendly crowd. And by the way, this just shows you what comedians have said all along, that some crowds do suck. Some crowds you just won't get a laugh. It'll just be out of your control. All right. Oh, the Bible ads. I don't skip ads. So, okay. Yeah. You know, the funny thing about these ads, and let me tell you, I was just looking through my videos, and most of them have limited monetization. So I make a very small amount of money on ads. It's mostly through, you know, my Patreon account and memberships that actually anything comes through the YouTube channel. Like I said, most of them haven't been completely demonetized, but have been mostly demonetized. All right. So what's the next story? Oh, well, this is like a follow-up. This is a follow-up to the Civil War in the Republican Party right here. This is a follow-up to that. Your favorite war criminal in mine, George W. Bush. Bush the younger, or Bush the schleppier, or the catastrophic president, ex-president, former president. George W. Bush says the Republican Party has a shot at future elections if it curbs its white Anglo-Saxon Protestantism. Speaking as a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant atheist, I can't agree more. Former President George W. Bush said he believes the Republican Party will win in future elections if his members embrace traditional ideas and curb the white Anglo-Saxon Protestantism. It's like telling the National Socialists in Germany in when did they get power? 1923? No, not 1923. 1933, I think it was. It's like telling the National Socialists, in Germany, you just got to give up the fascism. Right now, the Republican Party is white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Asked about the state of the Republican Party, Bush told the Dispatch podcast he believes there's a potential to win in the upcoming midterm elections and the 2024 presidential election. I think Republicans will have a second chance to govern because I believe that the Biden administration is a uniting factor, especially on the fiscal side of things. He said, George Bush, the younger. I can't believe I have to effing say this at all. Drove the country into a ditch between the money and the lives lost in the Iraq War and the administration of Iraq after the conflict, as well as the financial crisis. The idea that this man is saying that or implying that Democrats are fiscally irresponsible is laughable. But the Republican Party will not win by representing ideals tied to white supremacy, he suggested. If the Republican Party stands for exclusivity, it used to be country clubs. Now it's white Anglo-Saxon Protestantism. Then it's not going to win anything, Bush said. Bush was elaborating on a question about whether he believed the 2020 election was stolen from former President Donald Trump. A recent poll found that 60% of Republicans believe President Joe Biden won the 2020 election because of widespread voter fraud, a baseless claim that former President Trump and his allies spouted for months. I just want to point out too, everyone, if you've been following American politics here, the politics in the USA, that midterm elections, whichever party won the presidential elections, they lose seats typically, right? So Democrats won in 2020. If the past is predictive of future events, then more than likely the Democrats are going to lose seats in the House, maybe the Senate in the next election cycle in the midterms. Whether or not the Republicans decide to go and continue this crazy fascist path of white supremacy. Other Republicans have also predicted GOP win in future elections and plan to use Trump's help to get there. Senator Lindsey Graham, you can boo if you want to. I'm hearing boos whenever I hear his name, whenever I read his name. Senator Lindsey Graham earlier this year said he wants to leverage former Trump's influence to ensure the Republican Party takes back the House and Senate in 2022. In an interview with Politico, Graham said he'll meet with Trump to discuss the future and the GOP and his role in it. I'm going to try and convince him that we can't get there without you, but you can't keep the Trump movement going without the GOP united, Graham said on Friday. I don't know who Lindsey Graham thinks he's dealing with when he's dealing with President Trump. And President Trump doesn't care about other Republicans. President Trump doesn't give an F about Mitt Romney. He doesn't care about Lindsey Graham either. He just cares about Donald J. Trump. Asking Donald J. Trump to do anything that's not in Trump's perceived interests, it's useless. That's what it is. All right, check out the chat. See what's going on. Boo. Boo Lindsey Graham. That's right. Well, Scott Duke raises an interesting question worthy of the ancient philosophers. Who has the most punchable face? Lindsey Graham or Tucker Carlson? I can't make up my mind. If it was a forced choice, I don't know. I'd have to flip a coin to tell you the truth. Let's see what else. Geez, we should talk about that Duggar guy too. Maybe I'll cover the Duggar situation tomorrow about him getting caught with child porn. That's been blowing up over the weekend too. Tons of mice. I've started rewriting the Bible. Here's what I've gotten so far. In the Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created Sam Elliott. Oh yeah. You can use that joke from last night. Tons of mice. No hate. Respect here for that joke. I like that. All right. I think I covered all the chat. What do we cover so far? Mitt Romney getting booed, and W. Bush asking Republicans not to be Republicans, not to focus so much on the white Anglo Protestantism. Yeah, I don't think anyone's listening to George W. Bush in the Republican Party, and they're probably better off for it, to tell you the truth. All right, so what are we doing? I'm going to do a halftime show. It might be a little early, but I feel pretty comfortable with doing halftime show right now. Let's see. I think there's a cat involved too.
I guess. Gus is here. Here he is.
I'm gonna go talk to him.
I wouldn't go over there if I were you.
No.
Uh-oh.
Tabitha.
Tabitha.
All right, so that was a halftime show. It was lovers, star-crossed lovers there. 2 cats. One feral, now adopted. Her old boyfriend pops up. It's a classic story, as old as the stars themselves. All right. All right. Chesapeake goes, my cats talk like that too. Yeah, that was a very vocal cat, wasn't it? Very vocal. That is the term for child sound. Oh, okay. One created by, yeah. Sammy Jenkins. Like I said, I'll go cover the Duggar situation tomorrow. This ancient philosopher is still trying to decide who would win between Hulk and Superman. Oh, yeah. Well, Sammy Jenkins, I don't even want to get into whether you're talking about like Golden Age Superman, because we all know Golden Age Superman would beat any variation of the Hulk, but new Superman, they had to depower him. So now it becomes a much more, and there is that video. If you haven't seen the fan video of Superman versus Hulk, that is worth seeing. Well, you're right about that, brain bug. When we do get a cat here, when we do adopt a cat, we're not going to let it be an outside cat, because cats do decimate the bird population, from what I understand. Of course, my area does have a lot of rats too. I'm not going to lie to you. East Somerville is a great place, but we've got a rat problem. All right. On that happy note, remember, this is the happy version of this show. Let's talk about the Proud Boys. What about the Proud Boys? Proud Boys in Canada dissolves itself months after designation as a terrorist entity. Good job, Canada. Far-right group was deemed a terrorist entity in Canada in February, with authorities describing the group as serious and growing threat. Single tier that the Proud Boys are disbanding in Canada. Single tier. Proud Boys Canada, a far-right group that Ottawa named as a terrorist entity earlier this year, has dissolved itself, saying it has done nothing wrong, according to a statement by the organization. In February, Canada said the group posed an active security threat and played a pivotal role in the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol in January by pro-Trump rioters. U.S. authorities have charged several members of the Proud Boys in connection with the January 6th assault. Founded in 2016, the Proud Boys began as an organization protesting against political correctness and perceived constraints on masculinity in the United States and Canada, and grew into a group that embraced street fighting. The group's founder, media personality, and entrepreneur, Gavin McInnes, is a Canadian who lives in the U.S. The group first made headlines in Canada 3 years ago after 5 military reservists dressed in the group's black and yellow shirts disrupted a protest by the Indigenous community over a controversial statue. The group was banned by Facebook and Instagram in October 2018 after violating the platform's hate policies and classified as an extreme organization by the FBI. They're brown shirts. You just call the Proud Boys what they are, and all these other militias, far-right militias. They are just different manifestations of the essay of brown shirts. That's all they are. And them disbanding in Canada. Once again, good job, Canada. In January, Canada's Parliament unanimously passed a motion calling on the federal government to designate the right-wing Proud Boys as a terrorist group. The motion had no practical legal impact, but spoke to a growing worry over right-wing extremism in Canada. Canada's Public Safety Minister Bill Blair said in February that the domestic intelligence forces had become increasingly worried about the group. Canada will not tolerate ideological, religious, or politically motivated acts of violence, Blair said at the time. Once again, nice job, Canada. I don't know what's going on with the Proud Boys in the United States of America, but I'm pretty sure that they're not being disbanded. I'm sure they're not disbanding themselves. Of course, many of the leadership who were involved in the January 6th riots have been arrested. This is a positive thing. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Glenn Chesterton. We gave you Celine Dion, Bieber, and Gavin McInnes. You get to decide who's worse. That's a good point, Glenn Chesterton. Canadians doing America wrong. And I don't know. I don't know if this happens with people in Canada, that whenever a citizen of the United States of America just calls the country America like we own the whole continent. I don't know if that rubs you guys raw, you all raw, but for me, it irritates me somewhere in the back of my head. Tons of mice. Canadian Proud Boys disbanded. I shed tears of maple syrup, indeed. Yeah, they have little tiny. They do tiny energy boys. That's right. You know, having an attack on masculinity, I have to tell you, I've seen people being having to be responsible for their own activities. You know, growing up in the 70s and the 80s, where casual violence between boys was common and accepted. As I've seen my children go through high school, one's graduated high school, it's a different world. It's a different world. It is, at least up here, for where I live. You know, violence, maybe the out of control testosterone isn't as accepted in today's schools and in today's society. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Oh, Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson. You just want me to start yelling about Jordan Peterson again, Simply Secular Dave, and I'm not going to take the bait. I am not going to take the bait about Jordan Peterson. Hey, what's up, B? Hope you're doing well this morning. There we go. America is a different world, full stop. Well, it is a different world. All right, so let's talk about, see, I told you we have nothing but good news. Good news about Mitt Romney being booed. Oh, what? Am I going to play it again? I don't know. I'm not going to play the whole.
So what do you think about President Biden's first 100 days?
Just booed. See? Positive. Nothing but positivity. Mitt Romney being booed by Republicans. Bush the younger, telling Republicans that you shouldn't be so white. You shouldn't be focusing so much on white Protestants. Otherwise, you won't be able to win the presidency again, which is false, by the way. I just want to say that the assertion that Republicans can't do Trump again in 2024, that strategy, no, they can, and they can win that way. I'll say this before. I said it before, and I'll say it again. The only reason why Joe Biden won this election is because of COVID and Trump's mishandling of COVID. If Trump even just mishandled it less incompetently, he would still be president right now, and we'd be on the road to real fascism. a real fascist state. And of course, the Proud Boys disbanding in Canada. Nothing but good news. But is there more good news? Yes, there is. Let's take a look about what kind of trouble Rudy Giuliani is actually in. Is it a little bit of trouble or a lot of trouble? Let's find out what Chuck Todd has to say.
Chuck Todd is NBC's political director and moderator of Meet the Press. Chuck, good morning. It's good to see you. As I watched President Biden speak to that joint session of Congress the other night, I couldn't help but think that he was the moderate candidate in that presidential field among Democrats, and that progressives were worried that he was too moderate as he laid out something like $6 trillion of spending. Some has been passed, some proposed, but clearly transforming the role of government in the country.
No doubt. Look, this idea that he was going to be a transitional leader in the Democratic Party, too. Remember that? I mean, I think it's pretty clear he's ambitious to being a transformational guy. But I just want to remind folks about Joe Biden's entire career. He's always put himself at the center of where the Democratic Party is, not the center of where the country is, but the center of where the Democratic Party is. And Willie, I had Bernie Sanders on the show today. And in fact, my first question to him is, you may have lost, but did you win the argument? The point is, I think what Joe Biden today is at the center of where today's Democratic Party is. It just happens to be a much more open to an activist government today than it was during the Clinton years.
Yeah, and the Biden administration says he's just meeting a crisis. But as you say, progressives are thrilled. It'll be interesting to hear from Senator Sanders. Chuck, let's talk for a second about Rudy Giuliani. The FBI served warrants at his office and his apartment in Manhattan this week in connection to the Ukraine investigation, which inextricably linked from former President Trump's first impeachment. How serious is this for Rudy Giuliani and potentially for former President Trump?
Willie, I think everybody needs to understand the high bar that it takes to convince first the Justice Department and then a judge to issue a search warrant for a former U.S. attorney who happens to be the lawyer for the President of the United States. The amount of probable cause evidence that they already must have in order to get folks like Merrick Garland, a longtime circuit court judge who isn't going to do this willy-nilly, and then eventually the judge that they got to agree to this. So, look, we don't know yet what they know. A lot of us think we have a good idea. But again, I go back to the bar, how high it has to be for that to happen. Again, I think Rudy Giuliani is in so much more trouble than, in fact, how we've portrayed it.
More to come on that story for sure. Chuck, thanks so much. We'll look for more, of course, this morning on Meet the Press when Chuck is joined by Treasury Secretary
Schadenfreude. Rudy Giuliani in more trouble than we've been led to believe. I don't know. It might be the best Christmas ever, to tell you the truth. I'm not saying Rudy Giuliani is going to be in prison by Christmas. Of course, that would be fanciful thinking. But he could be in a lot deeper trouble than we expected, than we thought. Oh yeah, that is pretty good. Here we go, Doctor Osiris. Imagine Trump and Rudy in prison together. It just makes me. I don't know if my heart can handle all that excitement, Doctor Osiris. The potential, as small as it is, but in some alternative universe, right? In an infinite possibility, in a universe of infinite possibilities, of infinite universes, then there is some universe where Giuliani and former President Trump will be in the same jail cell. So what do you think of Biden's first 100 days? What I thought was interesting, and this is common, a lot of people have said this about Joe Biden being in the center of the Democratic Party, is that yes, the party has gone to the left. Yeah, it's not European left. It's not Green Party left in Western Europe, but it is significantly more left, than from the Clinton era. And that's because of the fact of Republican incompetency. And once again, this is a manifestation of where the country's going. It's either going to be all one thing or all the other. And Republicans know this. Donald Trump knew this to some extent. He might have not been able to vocalize it, because what can he really vocalize? Not a whole lot, not coherently. But at some point he knew that the country's either going to go fascist or it's going to become more like Norway. It's going to become more like Scandinavia. And that's why the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, the fascists, are so desperate. The oligarchs are so desperate. And that's why they are keeping up the pressure on their Fox News programs, on hate radio. They are keeping up pressure because they know that the country eventually, if they do not seize power, then the country will evolve naturally into something akin to Western Europe. You can see it in terms of the lack of religiosity in the country. And you can see in the fact that a lot of people, whether they're Democrats or not, or independents, really are for universal health care, or everyone being covered by health care. And concepts, these ideas about universal basic income are getting more and more traction. Oh, Rage. Hey, Rage. Didn't see you there. I was in my semi. I can't really rant that much because there's been so much good news on this show so far today. So much good news. It's difficult to get my rant on. Early doctor appointment today. Hit that thumbs up. Oh, hey, thanks. Oh, yeah. Let's see. Good morning, Ox. How you people got up so early? I'll never understand. And, you might be, I know it's Ox, but to me, once again, I think it's Theta Chi, the name of my old fraternity. Yes, I was in a fraternity in college, right? I have a funny story about why I got into a fraternity, but that's for another day. Sing Sing's mayor. That's right. Giuliani is going to be prison's mayor. Whatever prison he's in. Lock him up. Yeah, Rudy Giuliani. That man's got to go. All right, I think I caught up with everything in the chat. Covered Rudy Giuliani. What's the last story? So far we've covered Mitt Romney getting booed. No, I'm not going to play the video again. Maybe later. W. Bush. Both of them. It's the manifestation of the Civil War in the Republican Party. Those are the first two stories. Proud Boys being disbanded. Rudy Giuliani in deeper trouble than we were led to believe, possibly. And now, another bit of good news. More good news? Is that possible on a Monday morning? I guess it is. 4 astronauts splashed down in SpaceX Dragon capsule after 6 months in orbit. So yeah, space crap. 4 astronauts who spent the last 6 months aboard the International Space Station as part of the first operation mission of SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule are back on Earth after splashing down safely on Saturday in the Gulf of Mexico. The capsule, nicknamed Resilience, undocked from the space station at 8:35 p.m. Eastern, taking the 6.5-hour journey to its splashdown just before 3 a.m. Eastern Time. The astronauts are the first crew to make the Nightmare splashdown since 1968 during the Apollo 8 mission to orbit the moon. Is it a nightmare splashdown? I don't know if I would use the word nightmare splashdown in terms if I was writing that article. And by the way, in case you want to have a good laugh and read a few clever satirical pieces, you can go on my blog, Laughing in Disbelief, and then you can argue with me about my word usage. Mike Hopkins was joined on the mission by 2 other NASA astronauts, rookie Victor Glover and Shannon Walker, who previously flew aboard Russian Soyuz spacecraft, and Japan Soichi Noguchi. Noguchi. That's how I'm pronouncing. Their spacecraft Resilience set a new record for the longest space flight by a U.S. space capsule that carried a crew, surpassing the 84 days set by Apollo capsule in its final flight to Skylab in 1974. And I believe Skylab crashed in Australia, as I recall. They topped the old record by nearly 3 months, unexpectedly taking on a few more days this week after high winds in the Gulf delayed the originally planned April 28th return. A few things on the ground changed since Resilience lifted off from Kennedy Space Station on November 15th. For an example, the crew returns to a new U.S. president, Some things have not changed. The pandemic continues to rage around the globe, but at least the vaccines are now available. And of course, the astronauts are going to be getting their vaccine shots. So they missed the insurrection at the Capitol. They missed the chaos Donald Trump. They were here for the election, but they were happily up in space while a lot of that chaos occurred. The post-election chaos occurred. And I want to say, once again, I'm going to pat myself on the back and say, wow, Andy Hall, what a good job you did talking about the potential problems that existed between when the election occurred on November 3rd to when the electoral votes got counted. I think I did a remarkable job talking about double death overtime here when I was doing the show during that time period. But that's why I think you're here. We're here to exchange ideas and to make intelligent predictions about what's going to be coming down the road. Let's see. That's one way to quarantine effectively. That's right, Jesse Bear. Being in space is a good way of quarantining. Oh, I love that titty bar story, Andy. It was like reading a holiday and travel book. Thank you, Dr. Mordecai. I try my best on my vlog, laughing in disbelief. I try my best. Dr. Osiris says 6 months. That's it, 6 months in space. I could do that standing on my dice, but scared of heights. Yeah, that could be a drag. It doesn't sound like a fun way to land, right? It doesn't sound like a fun way, but is it a nightmare way? I don't know. Oh, Rudy? Yeah, it'll be interesting. Well, Rudy is. If Rudy does sing, it would take pretty. He would sign a deal, obviously, if he has a chance to do a plea bargain. And if they could turn him so that we get Trump in jail, that would be the sweetness that ever sweeted Glenn Jesterson. All right. Laughing ideas should be merch. They really should be. They should be. That's right. All right. So I think, wow, I covered a lot of stuff this morning. We covered a lot of things this morning. And I'm going to do the wrap-up video, the funny video. Is it another cat video? It is, before putting a bow on everything.
Cooter, do you want to help me clean this office? It's filthy.
Something about cats just chirping like that. I think it's hilarious. I don't know if anyone else does. Well, Sam Chaos, you're right about that. Glad to see you're here, Sam. Unfortunately, I suspect that if Trump gets ratted on, he'll try to keep the red tape going for years. Yeah, possibly. The feds do have a way of getting people. The feds do have a way of getting people that many have thought to be untouchable. But we'll see what happens. Well, that's a good point, Phil Lister. Trump might regret not paying his legal fee. It's always important to have friends. And Trump always had this transactional relationship with anyone, with everyone. So when things go sideways, Trump has his cult following for sure. But in terms of people in power, besides Marjorie Taylor Greene and a few other wingnuts, I don't think he has a lot. I don't think, former President Trump has an incredible amount of friends. And especially, and I want to point this out too, if Republicans don't do well in the midterm elections, if Trump candidates don't do well in the midterm elections, then you'll see a lot of his support in the Republican Party, melt amongst politicians, because the only thing politicians care about is getting reelected, more or less. So if they perceive that Trump cannot get them reelected, then you'll see a lot of Trump support melt away. Your show isn't showing up, laughing in disbelief. Can you drop a link for the show here in the chat? What, for the after party after show? I can oh, hey, Simply Secular Dave just did that. Thank you, Simply Secular Dave. I'm glad to have people who know what they're doing around me, since I have only a tentative grasp on things. Oh, and remember to like the stream before you head over. Thank you, Dave. And once again, if you're a member, thank you. If you're a patron, thank you. I'm going to be dropping another ad-free video, because that's what I do for patrons and YouTube members, is that I drop, because I hate ads, I dislike ads. So if you're a member, if you're a patron, you're going to be getting some old school content, well, some good content. Of course, I think I do nothing but good content here. You may not like the humor at times, but I think the interviews I do are pretty spot on. So I'm going to be doing, dropping a new video, ad-free video for members and patrons today, probably today. Not that link, Dave. All right, so what I'm going to do is see if I can find that after party link right now. And look, this is what I'm doing. Invite a guest. And I'm going to drop it right here. This should be the link to get in the backstage for the after party after show right there. So if you want to come on, then there's occasionally content here. There's occasionally content, everyone. So, hey, I want to thank everyone for showing up. Do I feel a little guilty that I'm ending the show like 8.5 minutes early? Not that I look at the clock religiously, for an atheist religiously, but I do. So, if nothing else, 10 o'clock a.m. Hop on over. We'll have a fun time. We'll talk. We'll have some schadenfreude gravy because of Republicans eating their own. And what else do we have to celebrate? What else do we have to celebrate? This.
So what do you think?
People always talk about the left eating their own, but it's just human nature. It's just human nature for political parties. All right, on that happy note, I'm going to do the thank you video, and then I'm going to get ready for the after party after show. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for contributing, everyone in the chat. And let's do the thank you video.